Hello guys, Red here. Today we are going to go a little bit off the beaten track and we are not going to be playing computer games. Instead, I'm going to show you a nifty bit of kit that I've picked up over the last week and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. It's done everything I wanted. It is a video editor. And what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is show you some of the pitfalls of uploading video to YouTube because for about 2 weeks when I started thinking, do you know what, I really need to start doing this. I want to get into it big time. This is my future. I want to upload loads of games because I've been playing games for a long, long time. If I'd started this 20 years ago, I can't imagine what I'd be right now. So some of the problems I had initially is I've always used Shadowplay, and when you record something, Shadowplay records it as an MP4, and that's fine. Shadowplay is fine for what it does. It's actually pretty great, but it has problems with sound input. Now, a pretty good tool is Ob Studio. I won't be doing a video on that today, but I will be doing a video on that later on, show you how to set it up. But the other thing I needed to do was start cutting stuff out of videos, start piecing little bits of videos together, and trimming stuff and trying to get rid of some sound that I'd created. Basically, just making a video a little bit more presentable when it got up to YouTube, because I found I was putting my videos up on YouTube, there were sound problems, there were parts of the video that didn't need to be there, so they were like an hour long and I could have cut out 30 minutes. It would have been much better for everybody. Now it does take a little bit of work, obviously, and I hopefully will be roping a colleague or a mate into doing this stuff for me in the future, but I still needed to learn it. And I did learn it within the space of a week. And I haven't even mentioned what it's called yet. It is called DaVinci Resolve. And it is free and it is awesome. I've got to be honest, I'm totally thrilled. But for a piece of software that's free, it doesn't come with any garbage, no system train notifications, no startup nonsense, no auto updates in the background. It's proper streamlined. I'm very OCD about that kind of thing. So I strongly recommend this Resolve as a video editor. And what I'm going to do, because there's been some pitfalls and I've had to do a little bit of research, I've spent a good number of hours trying to figure this bit of kit out. So what I thought I'd do was, since I put in games up, I might as well put up this as well because it might help out somebody, hopefully. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about Resolve and the problems associated with it. But first off, what we're going to do, we're just going to go to, just close a couple of these boxes here. Just going to go to Google and we're just going to search for Resolve download. And it's just there. We'll click on that. Click on download. Click on Windows, unless you're obviously Mac or Linux. We'll click on that. Just enter your details here. Now, I did enter my email. The only thing I can see intrusive here is the email address, but I've had this software now for over a week and I haven't received anything from Resolve and from DaVinci unless it's actually gone into my junk folder. So don't worry about that. Just register and download it. It's not a very big file. Once it's downloaded, just install it. And once you've installed it, just double click on it and get it running. Now, while you're doing that, I just wanted to do a couple of things because in this tutorial I want to show you a few of the pitfalls and what Resolve does. So first of all, I want you to open up Windows Explorer, File Explorer, and just leave that there. And I want you to press Control-Alt-Delete and open up your Task Manager, and we'll just plonk that over there. My CPU is a little busy at the minute because it's doing something in the background stuff. So don't worry about that. And then we'll go back to OBS. Sorry, not OBS. DaVinci Resolve. Now I've changed the window a little bit, and I'm trying to do the stuff on a 4K monitor. So if you're running 1080p or 1440, it might be different for you. It might be a lot more cluttered and everything, and it might look a little bit overbearing at first. But don't worry, we're going to simplify things. And I'm going to show you all the little things you need to do. Now remember, I'm not a professional. I've only been doing this for a week or two, so if it looks like I'm doing something a long way around or looks like I'm doing something wrong, please leave a comment. It's great. I need to learn this package inside out and I'm going to learn everything about it. But at the minute it's just the basic tools of cutting, editing, and rendering to a file that's presentable to YouTube. Okay, so obviously I've changed my settings, so if it doesn't look a little bit like this, don't worry about it, because I'm going to explain how to get it looking like this, and then from there I'll just do a little tutorial about the little bits that you're going to be using from the offset. Now, with Resolve, it's basically what you see here. If this is something close to what you're getting, it's basically at the minute just 3 windows. And this is one from here to here to here to here. This is one area. This is one window. We'll call them areas. Just call them areas. That's one area. And this is another area. And this is your playback area, if you like. And this is just like gadgets. And then on here is your timeline area. Now, it doesn't look very thingy bob at the minute because there's nothing in it. But before we start putting clips into it, I need to show you something that you need to do every time you open up DaVinci Resolve. And that's basically to go to File, you need to go to Project Settings, and you need to change this timeline frame rate to the frame rate that you want your final video to be at. So if you're happy uploading videos to YouTube that are 30 frames a second, then set it to 30. If you're recording first person shooters, set it at 60. But what it'll do is if in say OBS or shadow play, if you set your frame rate at 60 frames a second, what this will do at the end, it will change those 60 frames a second to 30 frames a second. Now, I haven't noticed any file size difference between 60 and 30, which is kind of a WTF. I don't know why that is. It's something I need to research. But for the stuff that I'm doing, like this video, for instance, 30 frames a second is fine. Now, I will tell you, you need to do this every time, because if once you start adding stuff, when you go to render, you cannot change this box. And if this is, say, for instance, set to 24, this is set to 24. When you change your frames per second to 30, you will need to change that to 30. And the main reason for that is if you don't change it, you're going to hear some weird sound issues. It's only for playback when you're editing. But there's going to be like glitches. I noticed little glitches. So try to keep these two figures the same and then click on save. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is bring in a video, obviously. Now, I've got a video from earlier, and it is somewhere around here. And I think it's going to be one of these. It doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it into this part here. And what it says is the clip has different frame rate than the current project. Now, this clip was recorded at 60 frames a second, but I've set the project to render at 30 frames a second. So what it's saying is, would you like to change the project timeline to 60 frames a second? I don't want that. I want to stick with 30. So I'm going to click Done Change. And if you're unsure which way you're out, or you don't think, you press the wrong button, just go to your project settings again and have a little look, and it still says 30. And as you notice, it's grayed out, which I can't make any changes. So if I did a massive project, I was working on it for 5 hours or something like that, and then I was like, I want this at 60 frames a second, and you go to render, it'll give you an error saying you can't render this. It's stuck at the different frame rate. So just make sure that's the frame rate that you want. Now, as you can see, I've popped this file into this area here, and what this area is the media pool. Now, this area here is kind of controlled by these 5 tabs at the top, and the only ones I'm interested at the minute, apart from this one, which I'll show you a little bit of in a second, is the effects library and the media pool. The edit index and the sound library I'm not going to get into. So at the minute, you can see that the media pool is highlighted white, and this is the only one that's showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this effects library just for a second, and you see that the window's split into 2. Now, what you can do is you can knock the media pool off, and you can change that effects library to completely own that section. And what these 3 buttons do is just make changes to this section. And at the minute, we don't need to use anything. I'll come back to the effects library. So let's just keep the media tool up. Now, a little handy thing you can do as well is you can split this into just one by pressing this button. And then that'll split that into 1, and it extends your timeline across, which is a little bit handy for editing a large section, and it just looks a little bit neat. We're just going to leave it like that for a second. Now, the other thing that we got is you might have 2 black areas here, one black area, one black area. And basically, when I drag this down to here now, this file brought in, just going to plonk it onto this timeline and it'll snap into place right on 00. As you can see, it's brought in a video section and an audio section. Now, some files, if you record it in OBS, you'll have like 5 or 6 audio sections. That's because OBS sends out 5 tracks. So don't worry about if you see 5 things. It's just I recorded this in Shadowplay and it only sends out 1 track, which is another reason why I changed to OBS. So we got a video there, and it shows the length of the video. Now I know it says 1 hour, but that's not actually true. I don't know why it does that. I'm going to try to find a way to set that to 0. But basically, if you scroll across with this red thingy bob, this red line, I guess, or wherever, it's going to say 30 minutes and 10 seconds. Sorry, 30 seconds, 30.10 seconds, whatever. So that's basically 29 seconds, 59 seconds, 1 minute, 29, etc. And as you can see, it's put in 2 windows. Now I don't not quite know why this second window is here for the minute. I haven't really figured it out. But what we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm going to press this inspector tab up here. And there's 3 things up here: the mixer, which I'm not going to bother with; metadata, which is just information about certain stuff, nothing really you can change in there; and the inspector tab. And the inspector is pretty cool. And we're not going to do anything with it for 5 minutes until we get onto text, putting text on the screen. All I want to do is just put that window up so we can get rid of one of those video areas and basically just play in with one area, this area here. So as you can see, this is the playback area, and it's got stop, playing forward, playing reverse, forward to the next section down here. But basically, when you move this arrow across, you'll see that it's changing in the playback area. And you can also move this slider across, and then this will update as well. So what you're messing with down here in this track area is what you're going to see up here, basically. That's pretty much the first step to get at. Now, the biggest problem I found with Resolve is that the playback is really tetchy. It's really tetchy. Let me just knock that audio off. There's a little button here for mute audio section, and you can see it's turned grey. Now it's really jittery, tetchy, and it's really difficult to work with. And when you're trying to cut stuff and you're going backwards and you go forwards and you're trying to find the right spot and everything, it's really funny to play with. The other thing I'd like to mention as well, there is a minus button here and a plus button, which increases the size of the line, and of course increases the size of the timeline, basically. So if you've imported a file of your own and it's gone all the way across the edge of the screen, just press this plus and minus button, and just get it down to a manageable size to fit your screen. And then if you just go back, press that back button. It works sometimes. Go there, press back button. Stop. Now, a bit dodgy, but let's just take it manually down. So you can scroll this thing across with your mouse. Just take it to the beginning. So I've got my file, and I know exactly what I want to do with it. I want to cut off a couple of minutes off the front of the video, and what I want to do is all this grey area here in this video, I want to cut it off. And if I scroll across, you can see that it gets to a point where eventually disappears. They just render. That might just be a dark area, actually. It was actually a dark area. So that's pretty much, I want to cut off the beginning of that. But the problem I've got is, like I said earlier, it's very tetchy, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. And there is a way to deal with it. Now, the best thing to do is go to playback, go down to render cache, click on user, and by itself that doesn't really do anything. But what we'll do is we'll keep this section selected in red, so it turns up red. And as you can see, just another thought as well, when you click on the video section, the audio section highlights as well, and that's because these two parts are linked together. And you can see here this little link, and we'll be doing something about that later on. But you can knock the link off, and then when you just click on that part, it just clicks on the video, and when you click on the audio, it just clicks on the audio. But don't mess with it around with that in a minute, because you can upset the timeline a little bit. Let's just keep that on, and those two are linked. So anything I do now with this track, if I move it or if I make changes to it or try to cut it, it'll cut the audio as well, and that's what you want, because when you cut a bit off of it, you want to take the audio out too. So just just keep a mind on that link, and we'll be. And another thing as well with this snap tool, kind of like if I go down here, it'll snap to the beginning. It's quite handy for moving stuff around. Like if I leave that there, it's fine. If I want to get that down to 0, it just snaps into place. So these two buttons you will be using quite a bit of. The rest, not so much at all, really. You might use this or that, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So these two buttons are quite useful, and we'll be using it quite a deal, quite a big deal, quite a lot, whatever. So the biggest problem we got now, we've gone to playback and we've set our render cache to user. What we're going to do, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. I'm just going to click on this video file. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to say render cache color output. I'm going to hit that. Now what happens is a red line appears across that whole section. The blue bar starts to fill that red line, and when that blue bar gets to the top, it's basically written a cached video somewhere on your hard drive. And generally that position in your hard drive I will show you where to go in a second. So let's just wait until that blue area totally fills. Okay, so that's finished now, and it's totally written that complete section. If you add two sections, like if I added another section down here and let that snap into place, so it's the same video but I've added it twice, you'll see that it's not doing this section. So what you need to do is right click on it, render cache again, and it'll render that section as well. So let's just undo that by pressing Control Z, and don't press delete. Delete is try to stay away from using the delete key. I'll show you the reasons why later on. But just press Control Z or right click and cut it. Now this section, you'll find that if I send my timeline line somewhere on and I press play, it is totally smooth. I say totally, it does its moments, but it is really a lot easier to play with. As you can see, I can fast forward it, I can pick an exact moment I want to, I press stop, zoom in a little bit more. Now these pictures generally, they have a hard time keeping up with exactly where it's at, but when you've done this and you've rendered the cache, it is a little bit more accurate with its little avatars, I guess. So as you can see, I can pretty much play that now quite smoothly. That's exactly what we want. Perfect, perfect. So if I just zoom out, I go back up here to the area I wanted to cut. I'm just going to play this now manually. I'm not pressing play. I'm just moving the timeline cursor. I'm going to go across, and that is where I think I want to cut it. Now to cut it, you can do it in two ways. You can either press Control B, which as you can see cuts it into two parts, or you can take this razor blade, click on that so it turns red, and you can basically just cut anywhere that you want. Now I don't like to do it that way because I often forget that I've got the razor blade activated because you have to click on the cursor again. I just prefer to press Control B. So I'll press Control Z to undo that now. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of this stuff on the front and just keep this part. So like I said earlier, I'm just going to either press Control X to cut it, just like Windows, like you cut in something, or you can right click on it and you can cut it. Now what that does is a little bit different to delete. What that does is it leaves the video in the old part is still attached to about 11-12 seconds. So what you can do is you can move that down. Let me just zoom out a minute because it doesn't show the front. Move that down and it slams straight into 00, which is what we want. And as you can see, because we made changes to it, it's caching again now. So just wait until the blue bar gets up to the top. Now with large files, obviously you don't want that, because if you'd moved, say, 30 minutes of video and you cut a little bit off the front, it would cache the whole thing. So you've got to be a little bit careful about what sections you want to cache. In the playback, there is something called a smart render cache, and it's actually quite good. It kind of caches the part that you're playing on, so that if you do move things around, it doesn't render the whole thing, because the render cache is quite big. It's quite memory intensive. And to just prove a point, I'll show you. I go and have a look at my task manager. I don't know why I should be doing that. I should be quite higher. It's normally on 100%. Maybe it's finished, is it? No, it's not finished yet. Did I change that? Let's have a look. Still on use. Oh, there you go. It's doing now. Maybe you should slow down something. And there you go. So it is quite CPU intensive while it's caching. And another thing that caching does as well, you got to keep a little eye on, is that if you go to File, Project Settings, and then scroll down a little bit, there's a working folders here, and it says Gallery Stills Location, and you can see it's going to see users, carries, videos. And inside there's a cache files location, and it's called cache clip, and that cache clip will always go, I think, into this folder here. And then if we go to what that location says, see where's it, videos, there you can see there's a folder here called cache clip. Now if I right click on that, go to properties, see that it's 5.8 gigabyte in size. Now you've got to be a bit careful, because if you're working on multiple projects and you're caching a lot, this thing can fill up really fast. I mean, when I went on it earlier, it was literally 200 gigabyte in size, and I wasn't really working on anything, so I had to manually delete it. So you need to keep in mind that you have to try to clear these things up when you can. And it does a half decent job at deleting stuff, but just watch your hard drive space, because if you've only got 128 meg hard drive and you've got like 20 gig rather, and you've got 20 gig left on it, caching might not be useful for you. So you need a good bit of storage for it. Okay. In some of these render caches, there are options to change it, but I haven't tested any of these out yet. I don't know which ones are better for file size or for playback. But I'll get back to you on that. So that's totally cached now. And if you go to Task Manager, you can see it. Everything's gone back to normal. It's a bit normalized, which is awesome. And I can move it around, and everything's perfect. I can press play, and everything is good. I can press back, and it actually. Okay, so that's basically how you cut a piece of video. Don't forget, it's just go anywhere you want. Say I wanted to cut off the back end of this, I think is a little bit too long. Now the problem with the snap tool is, if I just wanted to cut off a couple of seconds off the end, I've got two options. I can either zoom in, and the snap tool snaps at the later date, or I can just knock the snap tool off. I can go right to the edge as far as I want, just cut off that little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just take that, press Control B, let's cut it. I'll just go back a little bit after do that. Just click on it, make sure they linked, and I'll press Control X to get rid of it, or right click and cut, or you can press delete. The problem is with delete is if you have parts of this timeline which are not linked, when you press delete, some crazy stuff happens. So try to shy away or keep an eye on it, because if you delete something from the front, everything moves forward, but some things stay in the same place, and it messes up your entire timeline. If you're not paying attention, you'll be like, oh, and then you'll have to undo quite a lot of things to get back to where you were. So what we're going to do now is we're going to merge two clips together. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to add another video. So I'm going to go to Windows Explorer. That's Explorer, this Explorer. I go to the D drive, and I'm going to drag in another file. Let's take, I want to take something. Take, what's this called? Chapter 20. Take chapter 27, and I'll add it to the media pool rather than drag it. You can drag it straight in there. We'll add it to the media pool. So I prefer to just drag it in there, and then we'll take that. I'm going to bring it down, hover above it, keep your finger on the mouse, and until it snaps into place. Now I've forgotten that I've knocked the snap tool off, so I'm just going to hit that. If you're not careful, if the snap tool is off and you do that, it pushes the other one backwards. Yeah, so it kind of overlaps it, kind of deletes the end of the first video, which is handy in some instances, but we don't want that at the minute. So we'll just leave it there, hit the snap tool, and it'll snap into place, which is great. But don't forget that this part here is cached and this part isn't cached. So if we move the slider over, when we try to press play, it'll be jittery, and it'd be hard work to work with. I mean, it's not looking too bad now. Sometimes it's good, and there you go, and then it does this kind of thing. You can still, you don't have to render it. I mean, you just need to wait, be a bit patient, and I can just do that. Oops, press stop, do that, and just wait a couple of seconds for the frames to render, and then I can just cut it from there. So I don't have to cache it. And I'll actually not cache it just for this video. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to remove this by pressing Control X, although I could press delete, but I'm not going to do that because I've told you not to do it. So I'm just going to press Control X, and then it relieves the rest of the video. I'm just going to drag this down with the snap tool still enabled. Snap on the end of that video. If I go down to the first video, I press play, you'll see that the two videos now kind of merge into one seamlessly. They merge into one. Now that seamless is quite good, but if you're doing a video and say you're explaining something like I am right now, and there's pauses and you just want to get rid of them, having a seamless timeline is quite handy for certain things. But for this instance, what I want to do is I want to add a transition so that at the end of this video it goes dark, and then at the beginning of this video it starts dark and it comes in. So the transition's a lot smoother. And for this, we're going to go to our effects library. Now we did knock it off, so when I press this, I'm going to pop there, or if I pop the media tool as well, or I drop this down rather, you can have the effects library and the media tool open at the same time. So we'll just leave it like how we've got the media tool open and the effects library. What we did to get there, sorry, we press this little one here, and it kind of cuts that in half, don't forget. So when we do that, puts it back to 1. That's the media tool. So you've got the media tool up the top, you've got the effects here, and your timeline now is a little bit shorter, but it's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a video transition, which is here. And there's a lot of options in here, and you can play with them to your heart's content. But for this video, we're going to use cross dissolve. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. You can snap the timeline into your split, and you can drag the cross dissolve across and add it into the middle. And it basically, what that does is if I go across to here and press play, transitions the 2 videos into one. Now there's a problem here, because don't forget that this one isn't cached, this one is cached, this one isn't cached. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cache that for a second, because I need to show you the problems with transitions. So to cache it, right click on it, go to render cache color output, just let that do its job for a second. Okay, so that should be enough for a minute. It'll still keep on caching. I'll probably have a little bit of jitter while it's doing that, because my CPU is obviously overloaded. If you look at the task manager, it is definitely working hard. We can close that now. So if I press play here, cache still does okay, but you can see it does get a little bit jittery. Now, the problem is, even with it all cached, you'll notice if you just zoom in a little bit, even with this side cached and this side cached, you notice there is a little bit of jitter with the and that's the transition. This you can select it, make sure it's red. Problem is with the transition. Now to stop that from happening, just going to press stop a second. I'm going to go to file, go down to project settings, go down to, might have to scroll down a bit, and it's here, automatically cache transitions in user mode. We're going to click on that, click save, and just wait for a second. Now you'll notice that the red lines appeared between the transitions. So if you just want to speed it up because it's doing other things, so the caching is quite smart. It kind of caches the area you're working on. So if it's caching the whole project, you can come, and as you can see, it's said to itself, all right, he wants to cache this first, so let's go and deal with this first, and then we'll go back to the rest of the caching. Just wait for that to finish. Put it to the front, actually. Should come back in a second. This, and there you go. Now, if we scroll across a little bit and we press play, you'll see that it's seamless, that it doesn't have any jitter, it says, but it still does. Try it again. There you go. There you go. Just give it a little bit of time to catch up. And don't forget, it's probably, let's have a look actually. Just stop the out. It's still caching. So really, if you've seen a bit of jitter, it's probably because it's still caching. And that is that. Just zoom in, have a little look how that is. Okay, the caching is still caching. And it's still caching. So we've got to wait. We've got to wait. Just zoom out till that's finished. Okay, so now that's finished. Let's zoom back in to our split, and we'll just go back a little bit. Press play, and there you go. He says, and then it does that. It still has its moments, but trust me, it's a lot smoother than. There you go, and it just did it. It's a lot smoother than not using caching. Not using caching is it's hard work. It's hard work. For big files, caching becomes a problem. You've got to be careful about the clips that you cache in. It's best to use that smart cache because it kind of caches the areas you're working on. And there's an added bonus as well with caching. Is when you go to render the final video, it does actually use the cache files to speed up the rendering a little bit. And I'll come to that a little bit later on. So we'll go across here now, but I'm not quite happy with this transition because what it's doing is it's fading two videos into one. Now that's fine, but I didn't really want that. I wanted it to go dark and then I wanted it to come from darkness into the next video. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to press Control X to get rid of it. And that doesn't seem to work. Control Z, sorry, not Control X. Control X is undo, right? And not Control Z. I want to delete that then. Let me just put another one on here. As you can see now, I put a new one in and it's showing that that's not cached and you will cache in a second, but I just want to cut it to there. I can cut it there. I don't know what happened there. Maybe I had something selected. So press Control X to cut. Oh, see, why have I lost my mind here? Control Z is undo, Control X is to cut, right? Control X, I'm not doing it, and I don't know why. Right click on it. The noise. Delete. Well, just do it that way, whatever. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to put a cross dissolve, like I said, going from dark, from light to dark and then dark to light. So I'm going to put this cross dissolve on. Now, rather than put it in the middle, I'm just going to whap it on the end like that. And then I'm going to take another one. I'm going to whap it onto the beginning of your. Now it's a bit iffy, I find, with putting dissolves on. So what you need to do is let's just give ourselves a little more room. Just make this video a little, this thing about a little bit smaller. See, and what we do a bit better. So there are more video tracks and more audio tracks, and if I grab this and I push it up, it creates a second video track, which is awesome, and the second audio track as well. The audio track's moved down, the video track has moved up. Now you notice that cross dissolve that I put on there, it's disappeared. If I just zoom in, just totally gone, and I don't know why it does that. If somebody can help me out with that, I'll be more than chuffed. But if you take the cross dissolve now and we add it onto the end, and also take this cross dissolve and add it onto the beginning, And then if we snap it back down to the original line, that is, you can see that the two cross dissolves are still there. And if we press play, just wait for it to render. But goes to there, so the render. As we can see, if we press play, it goes dark, and then it comes to bright again. And what we can do is we can just stop that second, back a bit. What we can do is we can change the length of that cross dissolve by sending that over there, sending that over there. And if I just zoom out a little bit, go all the way over to here, just press play. As you can see, got a lot longer. Now it is caching again because it did change. So let's just wait for that to stop so it looks a bit neater. While it's doing that, if I just take you to the folder again where the cache is, if you right click on a cache clip, go to properties, you see now that it's 7.36 gig in size. So as you can imagine, if you're working on, and the video is only, what is it, a couple of minutes long. So if you're working on an hour's project, that cache file is going to get massive. So just be careful about what you're caching. So that's finished now. So let's have a little look at that. Right again. See, so it's still a bit funny, but you can see, just keep on trying it. Eventually, he says, keep trying it. And yeah, it's just trolling me. It's just trolling me hard. But you pretty much got a gist of how cross dissolves work. And the thing is, it might look a bit jittery here, and it might look a little bit weird, and it's pausing, all this kind of stuff. And I suppose that's the difference between something that's free and something that's super expensive, I guess. But it is where it is. I'm not going to complain because, like I said, it is free. But when it comes to rendering, that all that jitter won't be there. It's just basically the playback in Resolve. That's the problem, not the final output. So I think that is pretty much it for the editing. Oh yeah, the one other thing you might be interested in doing is put in some text on the screen. So I'll show you how to do that now. So let's just zoom out. Go to the beginning of the timeline, and then in the effects library, there's a little box here for titles. And if you just click on this text button, if none of this stuff is in here for you, for me, you need to go up here and show all, because if you just got transitions and you go to titles, there's nothing in there. Just make sure that this show all is ticked and it'll be there. So drag the text over. You're going to put it above the area. I want text to pop in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that, I'm going to extend it, wait till it snaps into position so that it's playing from the very start to the very end of that track. And up here in the inspector, if it's not showing, click on the inspector. Up here, and we're just going to change it just to say 29 chapter 4 and just leave it like that. Now, the two ways to move around, you can press space if you want. I find this a lot easier sometimes than trying to find the location. Or you can just scroll down a little bit and there's a position here. So I'm going to put it up to the top right corner of the screen. So let's try 2000, and that's too far. So let's try 1500. Oh, that's X position, sorry. Let's go to the Y position. Let's change that to 1500. Bar 1000. Oops, no, that's 100. 1000. That's not too bad. And because I put those spaces in there, so I'll get rid of that and I'll do it properly. 1500 was pretty good. Now, obviously, if I just wanted to tweak it across a little bit, I could do that, or I could go down and change this value and do it properly, the proper way. Now, of course, there's lots of things new. You can change the size. What I like to do is I like to put something on it called a drop shadow. So take that, click on here, just give that 10 and change this to -10. It drops a nice little shadow on the background, which look quite cool. I'll change this to -5. That text is quite big. Actually 5. I make it look to the right. And that looks pretty cool. Now what will happen is when I press play, it will pretty much forward it a bit, pretty much go to the end, and then when it goes through its transition, it will disappear, but it's juddering a little bit because it's caching again. Let's just pause, wait for that cache to end. Now you can also go back to your video transitions and you can add a cross dissolve onto this as well so that this actually disappears. And if you just drag that over to the same length as this so they kind of match each other. Just wait for that to cache. Press play here now. Chapter 29 will disappear along with the video. And there you go. And then obviously if you want to put another one in for this part, you can just do exactly the same thing. You can copy and paste that, or you can just go to titles and add text. And there's loads of stuff in here. Loads of stuff I haven't even touched yet. I'm rotating boxes and scrolling boxes, all kinds of groovy stuff that you can play with. But just for this video, I just wanted to do the basics, and that's pretty much it. Now, what we've got is we've got a video that's got 2 clips. Transitions is quite cool. It's all pretty groovy. Now I want to get this video out. The other thing I will say as well, you can actually change sound if you're not happy with a bit of sound. I'll do that now actually. Let's say for instance there was some background noise here. From here to here there was something that I didn't like and I want to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to cut the video, I just want to cut the audio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock link off and I'm just going to click on the audio. I'm going to press Ctrl B to split it. Then I'm going to move it across to the part where I want it to start again. Press Ctrl B. Click on that first, sorry. Press Ctrl B. You can see it's got a little part. And I'll just drop it out for a second and then I'll go on mute for that just to make sure it's fine, because if I delete it, which is what I'm going to do in a second, I'm going to delete it, but you can just check that that is exactly the part that you need to disappear. If you're happy with that, just right click and cut it, or press Control D. Why am I having such a problem thinking about it? When I do it with my fingers, there's no problem at all, but when I try to think about it, it screws with my brain. And as you can see, there's a bit missing. Now, don't forget to press the linked button again. And what you find is that these 2 areas are still linked, but this is unlinked from it. And what happens is if you try to move this, it doesn't move the one before. So we need to link them back up. So I'm going to press that, and press Control, and I'm going to click on that. It has all 3 of them. And then I'm going to press Control, Shift, and L. And that should have linked them together. No, it didn't. Let's try that again. Control Shift L. Okay, soft. Try again. L. As Control Alt L. Right. Now I think it might not be working. Let me try shifting that across a second. Might be because of that. Now another way to highlight stuff is to drag a box across it. So I just highlighted all those 3 things and let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. I think I'm either getting the keys wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Control Shift and L. I'll post a bit on the end of this video and tell you what I did to fix that. I think what you might have to do is find a piece. Just Control Z. Control X it was to cut. You might have to find a piece to fit in there. What you need to do is just go over here, maybe press Control B, go over a little bit more, press Control B again. Oops, click on that, press Control B, and if we right click on that and copy, just paste it, just zoom out a little bit because the paste is a bit weird. Press Control V to paste. Now we don't want that there, so press Control Z. Take the timeline all the way to the end. Press Control V to paste. It pastes it there. And what I'll do is I'll just take that chunk out, put it down there. I'll move it to match so that it fits in, and I'll just slide that in. Now if I just unmute it, And if we go back to, where's our timelines over here? So go back. You probably recognize it if you've done it already. But it's just over here. Got it. You see that there's not a gap. Recording, and of course, once you picked it and up, then I think, can we join these together? It's just over here. That a second. Stop the video. What we should do really is join these three together. Does that work now? Go Shift L. Oh, pretty sure I'm pressing the right thing because I can see that changing. But anyway, I'll come back to that and I'll figure that out a little bit later on. So we've cut the video, we've cut audio, we've got our final thing, we're happy with it. What we want to do now is make a file. We've got to go to one of these. I forgot to mention these actually. These are just like 7 tabs. This one you might use a little bit of to set up your location directory to show where your files are. It's a little bit like you know, just a place where you can see all your stuff. I mean, if you add a new directory there, this would get populated by every video in that directory. And these locations come in handy for when you're editing and you're trying to find something. But don't worry about that too much. And there's some pretty cool things on here. Fusion is quite cool. Color's obviously cool. Fairlight I haven't bothered with yet. But for us, just basics, what we need to do is to render this video. So we're going to click on the Deliver tab. Sometimes I'll be calling it Render tab. And we'll go to a brand new screen. Now, as you can see, I recorded this video 4K. I'm not happy with that resolution, so I want to change it. Now you can do that 2 ways. You can go to File, you can go to your project settings, you can scroll up to the top and change that to 3840 by 2160 and save it, which is something we should have done earlier on, but it doesn't matter because you can change it. Now, back in the render, you'll notice that it's gone to 3860 by 2160. Now if you go to your file, if you remember earlier on when we changed our project settings, can't change that frame rate now. So when we've come to export our video, it's for our frame rate at 30 frames per second. Now if you kept it at 60, notice that we can't change our frame rate. What I'll do is I'm just going to change this to MP4. I'm going to stick with the H.264 codec, and now you'll see that I can, well, it should, I don't know why it's doing that. Sometimes it had other options in there, but it doesn't matter. It's set it to 30. Now, if your project says 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second, and this says 24 or 60, and they're different, they don't match up. When you try to start your render, it'll come up with an error message, and the error message is not very explanatory. But basically, you've got your frame rate mixed up. So what you need to do is just come back here and make sure that this 30 matches the 30 in your project settings here. Okay. And if you start to render and get an error message, that's exactly where the message is from, because these two figures don't match up. Now, when it comes to quality, you can either click on this, which I find a little bit misleading and don't quite know what kind of kilobytes per my bitrate is going to be. So for 4K video, I generally try to aim around 25,000 bits per second. So I'm going to set that manually. If you're doing 1080p or 1440, go to YouTube and you can do a search for bitrate, and it'll find a little website which will tell you. I can actually show you right now. Actually, I have. I can't do that. Yeah, just do a search for YouTube bitrate, and it'll tell you the bitrate for 1080p, and it's probably somewhere around the region of 15,000 kilobytes per second. Now, I like to set it because it allows me. I got a rough idea of how big that file is going to be for the length of video that I'm going to render, and I think that for 1:05 it's going to produce something that's around 700 megabytes in size at 4K. So that's pretty much everything I think we need. MP4, H.264, 3840 by 2160, 30 frames a second, restricted to 25,000 megabits. It says kilobytes per second, but it's to. And we will add that to the render queue. And we will call the file my file just for a second. Press enter, and you can see a job has jumped into the render queue. Now we're quite happy to start rendering now, but there's something we just need to check. Because we've cached all that stuff, we want to use that cache to speed up the rendering process. If you click on advanced settings and scroll down a little bit, there's your use render cache images. So let's just click on that. let's just get rid of that just in case it doesn't change. So click on that, use render cache images, add to render queue again, and this will just close down a little bit. Where was it? Settings. Just close that just to make things look a bit simpler. And now we're happy. You can start to render, and the project starts. As you can see, 6 minutes. It's normalizing. 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so that job is completed now. It says completed in 2 minutes 42, which is pretty awesome, to be fair. And the only thing left for us to do now is go back to the editing tab. Just leave that as it is. We'll minimize this and go and take a look at our finished project. Now, I think I called it my file, didn't I? MP4. And if you have a look at that, called my file was. See, it's not very big. I was expecting it to be bigger than that, to be honest. Right at the start. And there it is. I don't know how I managed to miss this. And it's got, obviously it's got sound in the background now, because it's rendered the sound as well. Let's turn that down a little bit. See, it's got the chapter in there. It's got that smooth transition, which is awesome. Still in 4K. And that's perfect. And that's ready. I'm happy with it. And it's ready to upload. If I'm not happy with it, I can go back to DaVinci Resolve and I can play with it a little bit more. And I can render it again. The only thing I would say now, just go to File, go to Save Project. Where is it? Save Project. Click on Save Project. And obviously what it does is it saves the project, not the video. It saves all this stuff that we did here, all this stuff. It'll save that. So when you close it down, when you load it back in, see your project is there and you can load it back up. The only thing I will say with that is if you do that and you delete one of these files from the folder that they were originally in, it won't be able to make any changes, because once you delete that, it'll come up as a big X there saying file missing. So if you want to keep your projects, it's a good idea to keep your files that you're playing with, and if you think you're going to have to make changes in the future, just keep them on a separate storage device, and just so you can be prepared to bring them back, like a USB stick or something, just so you can bring them back at a later date. The only other thing I would mention is that if you want to go to another project, it's a little bit weird because you just think you're a closed project or whatever. But the best way to do it is go down to Project Manager, click on that, and it opens up other projects that I've got. I can start a new project there, or I can open up one of the others. But I don't want to do that. So I'll just click on Close, and I will close this Resolve. It says the project has not been saved, and that's because I did save it, but I made a couple of changes. So I'll click on Save, close it down. We've got a file. All that's left to do now is go to YouTube and upload it, and the job is completed. Okay, and there you go. So I wanted that video to be half-hour long, but it just went on a little bit. Let me see if I can cut a little bit out at the end. Do a bit of editing on my editing video. So there you go, guys. I hope that helped. I hope I didn't drone on too much. If I made any mistakes, or anybody who's like, yeah, you're going to do that, I will go back to that file in a minute. I will figure out why those audio clips wouldn't join together and reconnect, and I'll add that on to the end of this after I've just gobbed off for a couple of seconds. So yeah, if you like the video, subscribe. I'll have loads of content on. There's not a lot of games out at the second. There's a game coming out next week called Etherborn, which I will play, and it looks pretty good. Have a little look at that. ETHERBORNE coming out on July the 18th. It looks awesome, and I'll hopefully see you there. Okay, guys, like I said earlier, I did want to show you how to fix all these cuts, and I figured out how to do it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to reattach all these back together. Now these two are attached, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the link part so it unlinks them, and then I'm going to make sure that they're all highlighted red. And then I'm going to right click on a space, and I'm going to go to new compound click. I'm just going to call that wherever you want. Just press create, and it turns that entire clip into one part. And then I'm going to highlight both parts, the video and the audio, and I'm going to press, I think, the link session. Oh, that didn't do it. Just make sure that link is on. So highlight them both again, and you can either right click and link clips, or you can press Control Shift and L, and that will link the two together. And as you can see, it's got the link symbol and it's got this symbol, which I suspect has got something to do with a compound clip. It's changed the name of the section, but don't worry about that too much. And there you go. When you move it now, everything is good and everything is back to normal. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot about earlier, is this caching. Now, when you're finished with the file, you got two options here. You can either leave the cache in, so when you open it later, it's all cache, which is fine, but obviously we don't want to be doing that because we might never use this project again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to playback, and we're going to go to render cache, and we're going to knock it onto none, and that gets rid of all the cache, but the cache folder is probably still full of stuff. And there you go, it's got 12.5 gig in it now. So what we're going to do is we're not going to delete the here, we're going to go back to Resolve, go to playback, and we are going to delete render cache. I'm going to click on all render cache for the current project will be deleted. Are you sure? Yes, we are, because you don't want to use it ever again, and it doesn't matter anyway. We can just render cache it even if we wanted to. And now if we go back to the videos folder, right click on the cache clip folder, click on properties, and it still says there's 4.5 gig in it. Even though we deleted all that render cache, it still says that there's 5 gig of stuff in there. Now I'm pretty confident I don't have any caching from somewhere, so I don't know if that come from a file I played earlier, maybe, possibly. So there's every possibility now that if I empty this folder, it is going to delete another project's cache. But I don't care, because I can just do it again. So I'm going to go into cache clip, I'm going to highlight everything in here, and I'm just going to delete it. Now obviously you got to be a bit careful, because obviously if there's stuff in here you're using for another project, you are going to delete it. I'm just going to skip that because it's probably got something to do with in here. I'm going to come out, just right click on that cache clip, click on properties, and it's down to basically 0. So that's the way to do it. Just make sure if you're into size management, or you're a bit stuck for space and you want to keep an eye on it, don't worry about emptying that cache clip folder, because any projects that you've cached, if you've got big projects and you want to keep it, then don't do that. Obviously, it's just my file sizes are generally 15 to 30 minutes long, and if I'm more interested in keeping my hard drive clean, because I've only got 300 gig left. And like I said earlier, when I went in there, I went on my hard drive, was like, whoa, what the hell? And then I found out what that was, and it was only like 60 gig left. So it was like 300 gig of caching in there, and I didn't even know it was there. So there you go. I'm just going to post this now. I'm just going to cut this onto the end of the other video, and I'm going to get this up to YouTube. It is an hour long, so I will have to put it into 2 parts. Like I said before, I hope this helps. If you've got any comments, please post. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Have a good day. Bye bye.